So let us begin with our first panelist, Rade.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here today. And just by way of background, I work in the insurance industry, but I've spent over 40 years working in extreme events and disaster resilience. I've advised governments and a number of other organizations on things like building codes, government insurance pools. In Australia here, I've worked on the cyclone pool and have spent many years trying to improve resilience for communities and societies. I chair the International Actuarial Association's Climate and Sustainability, and I've represented the profession at the last three COPs, 27, 28, and 29. So for my introductory comments today, I would just like to tell you about 6 things. I'm going to make 6 points very briefly. And I think these are 6 things that may help kick off the discussion. First, the current problems with affordability in countries like Australia, the Americas, etc., are not due to climate change. Instead, they reflect technology and a poor understanding of risk in the past. And the reason I say that is that the main thing that's driving acute affordability pressure is the move away from broad area pricing to address level pricing, which has been enabled by technology, things like Google Street View, Google Earth, and much better databases. And that has effectively concentrated risk on a small portion of the population. Historically, prices were spread much more widely across broad areas, and that masked affordability issues. And this reality also undermines the argument that people knowingly assumed risk in the past and now should pay for it, because if the system failed to send proper price signals to consumers, you cannot blame them for not realizing their property was at risk. My second point is that there's an important difference between what I call boundary perils like flood, storm surge, or bushfire, and accumulation perils like tropical cyclones and storms. And what I mean by that is that in perils where affordability is challenged by address level pricing are the ones that exist on boundaries like riverbanks, beachfronts, or the bush-urban interface. Boundary perils are characterized by large proportions of the population having zero or very little risk, while a small minority have a very big risk. And that means when address level pricing hit the market, the private market really cannot offer affordable prices, making government intervention almost inevitable. And we've seen that with, for example, flood insurance in countries around the world. My third point, building code approaches, including an emphasis on life safety and a static view of risk, are leaving us very poorly prepared. Historically, in many countries, building codes, and this is particularly true in Australia, have focused on life safety, not property damage and not community resilience. And they failed to consider how risk may change in the future from factors like climate change. This approach must change. My fourth point, climate change may shift risk faster than the housing stock turns over, making it imperative that we change our approach to building codes and land use planning. This reality undercuts the notion that risk-based pricing is going to send proper economic signals. A one-year policy that's common in the insurance industry cannot send a signal past the next 2 or 3 years. As the climate shifts, risk is going to shift. And that means that building fit for purpose in 2025 may not be fit for purpose in 2040. My fifth point, climate change, particularly sea level rise, will require retreat and relocation, which will be extremely expensive and create significant distress. The trillion-dollar elephant in the room is going to be retreat. There is no way to erect a seawall around the continent, though my colleague in the Netherlands may disagree a little bit based on what they do there. But people are eventually going to have to move. And that begs the question of when we should stop paying to rebuild, and instead, when should we start spending that money to relocate? And my sixth and final point, Climate change will not make insurance unaffordable for most risks, though efforts to subsidize high risks or relocate people are going to cost a lot. It's a popular comment among many environmental activists and some insurance people to say that climate change is an existential threat to the insurance system. It is not. Climate change will cause losses, but it may actually lower other losses. But the system should be able to handle that for the vast majority of risks. The problems are going to be concentrated in certain areas like beachfronts or riverine property, and that makes it imperative that societies work out a subsidy and relocation mechanism that helps vulnerable people without ruining the larger insurance system. So I'll leave you with those 6 comments and turn it over to the next speaker.